everyone, this is Gliza, Made with Glee. In today's video, I'm participating in the monthly collaboration hosted by the very lovely Momdas Life Handmade. Every month, Momdas invites us to join in her Sew Your Stash collaboration, in which we just go into our stash, look at our fabrics, pick something, and just sew it. So I pulled out all of my Christmas fabrics. I wasn't sure what I was going to make this month, but I decided, everyone's doing Christmas videos already. Let me do some Christmas fabrics. So in my stash, I have quite a bit of yardage, but I found these pre-cut squares. Now, I believe I did a quilting project or several quilting projects a couple years ago. I know lots of my family members have table runners from me and placemats, so perhaps that's what these are from. But I sorted them and I believed I had enough squares to make some sort of project. And the project I decided to make this month, of course, pillow covers. I love pillow covers. It can change the decor, the mood, the theme so easily just by covering your pillows, your sofa cushions with some new fabrics, or throwing on some tossed pillows. So these squares that I found are 4-inch squares, and I'm drawing a line down the center. And what we're going to do, we're going to make half triangle squares. So from the center line, I'm going to sew 1/4 inch on both sides, and I chain piece, meaning I sew them all at one sitting. So I'm able to do quite a bit at the same time and not have to wait. And the same thing for cutting into my triangles. I line it up on my grid mat and then just slice down the line that I drew earlier. And then I'm able to get from each 4-inch square, I'm getting 4-inch or a little bit less than 4-inch half triangle square blocks. And you can use any combination of fabrics, but again, I'm just using the things that I already had cut as squares. So, and that ornament fabric was very pretty, and I thought, okay, this is perfect. I'm gonna use it because I had enough of those and enough of the green and the red to combine. So now once I've made my half triangle squares, it's a matter of playing and deciding how big of a pillow cover I need and what design I want to do. So my pillow cover is going to be, and I'm making these pillows with stuffings, it's going to be 4 square across by 4 squares down. So each pillow is going to require 16 squares. And remember, I started with 4-inch squares, but after you sew your 1/4 inch seams, they're going to be slightly less. Anyhow, we end up with a pillow form that's about 12 inches square. So now I just play with my half square triangles and try to come up with, something that I like. There's so many possibilities, and this is where the fun comes in. You can just do, like I said, if you even add in some solid blocks, it changes the whole dynamic. You mix the colors. I ended up deciding that I'm going to do 2 completely different pillow blocks. Even though that the ornament fabric coordinated with both, I decided I wanted to do 1 red and 1 green pillow square. But here I'm just showing you guys all of the possibilities that you can do with your little half triangle squares. And these are 4 inches, but you can use 5-inch squares of fabric or even 10-inch squares of fabric. You can cut yardage and make big 20-inch square half triangle squares and sew a bunch of them together and have an entire quilt top. Completely up to you which way you want to go with it. So once I decided on the patterns that I like and what I wanted to do, I start piecing them together by sewing 2 at a time. And again, I sit at my sewing machine and I'll do several in a row before coming back and snipping them and lining up. So I have my center square, I decide on my outer pattern, and then I sew those again 2 at a time until I make up a row. And then once the row's been made, we attach that to the other row, and so on until we have our square. So this again is just a lot of playing for me, deciding what I wanted. I have changed the layout several times through this process. I couldn't decide. It was just so many pretty options. If I had enough fabric, I'd make like one of each, but I didn't, and I definitely don't have room for that many pillows. Okay, so my pro tip is to make sure that your seams line up, and that's the importance of pinning in order to get a nice clean block where all of the cuts line up. And that's the final design I ended up going with on the green pillow. I decided to make a pinwheel pattern. But again, just make sure that your seams line up and everything should easily fall in place. And don't forget the importance of ironing. Everything needs a good pressing here and there. And here I'm just showing you guys how I chain piece. Once I've matched up my squares and I know which row I'm working on, I'll do an entire row at the same time. Then cut them apart, lay them back out, and then sew another row together. So that's called chain piecing, and it's the easiest way to put together a large quilt. But here we're just making a pillow cover, but you can follow the same method if you wanted to make a table runner, or something even longer, wider, bigger. I mean, you can go Afghans all the way bed quilt, just starting with these little squares. So it's just a matter of combining them together. And we could have did reversible pillow where we have one on each side. I certainly had the option. Here's another quilt block that I made out of some of the gingerbread fabric I had, but we're gonna leave that one to the side. We're just gonna work on these two right now. Now, I wanted the look of quilting, and while that's pieced together and it looks perfectly fine, I wanted to add a little bit of stitching on the top and to have that puffy feel of a quilt. So I'm actually using some leftover muslin and batting from a actual queen size quilt that I made after I had trimmed it up. This was leftover. I tend to buy like the king size and then trim to size, or whatever. I always have leftover stuff. So I'm just taking some basting spray, and I'm using pieces, and again, I didn't go and cut anything. This is all scraps that I'm using, and I just kind of butted the two pieces up together, and the same thing with the back end, because no one is going to see that is on the inside of our pillow. And once I have my layers together in my quilt sandwich, I go to my sewing machine and I do a stitch in the ditch. Now, I could have been a lot neater and use matching thread for you guys, but I just wanted you to see the difference. And of course, I could have certainly stayed in the line a lot better, but I was in a hurry. So once my quilt sandwich is all quilted together, it's a matter of squaring everything up and cutting it into an exact square. And this is where it ends up coming down to a 12¼ inch square that I get from my pillow form. And I'm going to sew this with another 1/4 inch seam to put it together with the backing, so it ends up being a 12-inch pillow form. So remember, 4-inch squares. When you I started with 4-inch squares, 16 of them combined to create that. Now again, if you were done and you were doing a runner, you could just add some binding on, and that would be in a runner, and that's it. But I'm gonna cut some backing out of the same ornament fabric. I had enough to create the back of 2 of my pillows, and now it's a matter of sewing these together. Now, I've shown you guys several times how to sew pillows. Really easy if you wanted to do a zipper one too, but for this one I didn't have a pillow form, a 12-inch pillow form that wasn't already claimed, so I decided to stuff this with polyfill because I happen to have polyfill on hand, and a bag of polyfill could possibly give you 3 nice, fluffy, firm, not the weak pillows that are barely stuffed, but a 16-ounce bag of polyfill will definitely fill about 2 to 3 pillows, 12-inch size. That's my opinion. So now, before we stuff, make sure you take your pillow to the iron and give it a good press, and press the seam that we're going to hand sew together. So that opening part, you want to make sure that you press that in, so when we go to sew it all together, it all lines up easily. And now I do the same thing for the red. I made my little sandwich, and then I just added some decorative stitching in the red portion, the plain portion of the fabric. And here, as you can see, I've stuffed this one already and sewn it up, and now we're going to use the polyfill and we're going to stuff this. But I decided I wanted to make buttons and add it to my pinwheel, so I'm using a button maker kit that I also happen to have on stash, because yes, I'm a crafter, I have everything and I just need to use it. So I make my own little cover button, 2 of them to be exact, from little squares that, again, nothing cut. Everything here was left over. I had enough of those squares. And now I'm sewing with a, what do you call this, a ladder stitch or an invisible stitch. I'm sewing my opening close so that you don't see it. And this is why it's important to iron your seam here, because it's easier to catch the fabric. And then see, as you pull it, the stitching just basically disappears. And then I attach my buttons, and make sure you use some very strong thread to do this. Regular sewing thread will break. You maybe use like embroidery floss or like a number 10 cotton. And I do have a much longer needle that I should be using. I just couldn't find it at the moment, so I use a regular sewing needle to attach my button onto the pillow. And that's about it, guys. I have 2 really cute new pillows for this month's Sew Your Stash, and I was able to deplete some of that stash of mine. I used a bit of yardage, and I was able to use up some of the squares that were left over from previous projects. So thank you so much, Momdas, for making me go into my stash every month. There's so much that I buy and I say I'm gonna sew and I'm gonna make and I'm gonna do this and do that, and I never get around to it. And I really appreciate this monthly challenge, because it definitely helps me work through my stash and get things done. And I love seasonal decor and seasonal stitching, so I'm able to do that here. So again, thank you so much. And I will be linking Momdas's channel as well as the playlist. Do check out the videos. And thank you guys all for watching, for liking, for subscribing. If you have any questions at all, please feel free to let me know. Have a wonderful day. Bye.